You're lying in bed at 1 a.m. 10 years later, and it happens again. Not a memory you chose to visit, one that visited you. The thing you said in that meeting, the way your voice cracked in front of the class, the joke that landed in dead silence. Your whole body reacts before your mind even finishes the sentence. Your face gets hot. Your stomach drops. 10 years, and your nervous system still treats it like it happened this morning. That's not you being dramatic. That's not a character flaw. That's a documented feature of how your memory actually works. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you'll never look at your own cringe the same way again. Let's start with a question. Why does your brain hoard the embarrassing moments so carefully while it lets the good ones fade? You'd think evolution would want you replaying your wins, not your worst 30 seconds on a loop. But your brain isn't optimizing for your comfort. It's optimizing for your survival. And in survival terms, embarrassment isn't trivial. It's data. In 2000, psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Gilovich Savitsky at Cornell University ran an experiment that's now famous in social psychology circles. They had college students put on a t-shirt featuring a large image of Barry Manilow, an outfit specifically chosen to feel humiliating and walk into a room full of peers. Afterward, the students were asked to estimate how many people in the room had noticed the shirt. Their guesses were nearly double the actual number. Gilovich and Savitsky called this the spotlight effect, the deeply held, deeply wrong belief that other people are paying far more attention to your mistakes than they actually are. Here's the part that matters. It's not that other people are watching you closely. It's that you are watching yourself so closely that your brain assumes everyone else must be too. Your own self-focus gets projected outward, and it gets logged as a threat. Gilovich and Savitsky didn't stop at the t-shirt. In follow-up studies, they had participants make a mistake during a group discussion, then estimate how many people would remember it a week later. Again, the estimate was wildly inflated. People consistently believe they're the main character in everyone else's memory, when in reality, most people are too busy starring in their own internal replay to notice yours. The spotlight you feel isn't coming from the room. It's coming from inside your own skull, and it never actually turns off. So why would a threat like that get logged so permanently? Go back further than a college classroom. Go back to a small human group thousands of years ago, where your survival depended entirely on your standing within that group. Getting exiled wasn't a bruised ego. It was a death sentence. No tribe meant no food, no protection, no one to help you through winter. In that environment, a social mistake wasn't just awkward, it was existential. And a brain that remembers exactly what caused the group to laugh at you or exclude you or judge you is a brain that can avoid making that same mistake twice. Neuroscientist Elizabeth Kinzinger, who studies emotion and memory at Boston College, has shown that emotionally intense experiences activate the amygdala, a small structure deep in your brain that works like an alarm system. When the amygdala fires, it doesn't just register that something happened, it flags the memory as high priority, pushing your brain to encode it in far more vivid, specific detail than it would for a neutral or mildly positive moment. Embarrassment fires that alarm hard because underneath the modern discomfort, your brain is still reading it as a social survival threat. Now compare that to praise. When someone compliments you, your amygdala barely stirs. There's no alarm, no red flag, no urgent priority tag. The compliment gets a brief, pleasant acknowledgement, and then it moves on, filed away in a part of memory that fades fast. No threat, no permanent storage. That's the asymmetry. Danger gets etched in stone. Approval gets written in sand. Think about how lopsided that actually is. A single tripped over sentence in a job interview can live in your memory for decades, replayed in full sensory detail, the chair you were sitting in, the interviewer's exact expression, the silence afterward. Meanwhile, an entire year of ordinary, competent, perfectly fine interactions barely leaves a trace because none of it triggered the alarm. Your memory isn't a fair historian. It's a threat log, an embarrassment writes in the boldest ink it has. This connects to something psychologist Roy Baumeister documented in a landmark 2001 paper he co-authored bluntly titled Bad is Stronger Than Good. Baumeister and his colleagues reviewed decades of research across memory, relationships, and decision-making and found the same pattern surfacing again and again. Negative experiences consistently produce a faster, stronger, and longer-lasting psychological response than positive ones of equal size. Embarrassment isn't an exception to that rule. It's one of its clearest examples. Now picture the actual moment. You're in a work meeting. You mispronounce a client's name in front of 12 people. Someone laughs, not cruelly, just a small, involuntary laugh. Your face goes red. You correct yourself and the meeting moves on within 4 seconds. Everyone else has genuinely forgotten it by lunch. But that night, you're replaying it. You're replaying the laugh, the exact pitch of it, the look on your manager's face, the version of the sentence you should have said instead. Your brain isn't torturing you for no reason. It's running a threat assessment simulation, trying to prevent the mistake from ever happening again. Using the only tool it has: intensity. Here's the counterintuitive twist most people never hear. Your memory isn't malfunctioning when it replays your worst moments. It's functioning exactly as designed. This isn't evidence that you're insecure or overly sensitive or bad at letting things go. It's a precision survival tool calibrated over tens of thousands of years now, firing in a modern world that almost never actually threatens your survival the way it once did. Your brain can't tell the difference between being exiled from a tribe and being gently teased in a Zoom call. Both get flagged, both get stored, both get replayed at full volume. Once you see that clearly, you start noticing it everywhere. Think about the last time you sent a text and immediately regretted the wording. How many times did you reread it that day? Now, think about the last time someone sent you a kind message. Did you reread that one just as often, or did you glance at it once and move on? Think about a group photo from years ago. Can you instantly recall the one where you thought you looked bad down to the exact angle and lighting, while a dozen photos where you look completely fine have blurred into nothing? None of that is a personal weakness. It's the same ancient circuitry that once kept your ancestors alive in a small, interdependent group, still running in a brain that hasn't been updated for group chats, video calls, or comment sections. The mechanism hasn't changed. Only the stakes around it have dramatically without your amygdala getting the memo. Think about the last time you tripped in public. Not badly, just enough to catch yourself and glance around. How many strangers do you think actually clocked it? Now, think about how many times you've thought about it since. The ratio isn't close. Or think about a message you sent in a group chat that got no reaction and how your mind quietly built an entire narrative around that silence when the far more likely explanation is that 3 people were mid-conversation about dinner plans and never even opened the notification. Knowing this doesn't switch the mechanism off. You can't simply decide to stop remembering the cringe-worthy moment any more than you can decide to stop your amygdala from responding to a sudden loud noise. But knowing what's actually happening changes your relationship to it. The next time an old embarrassment surfaces uninvited at 1 a.m., you can name it for what it is: an outdated alarm system doing its ancient job in a context that no longer requires it. That single moment of recognition is often enough to loosen its grip, even if it can't erase the memory outright. And Gilovich's research offers something else worth carrying with you. If you consistently overestimate how much other people noticed your mistake, then the audience judging you most harshly in that replay was never really the room. It was you. The 12 people in that meeting moved on in 4 seconds. You're the one who kept the tape running. You started this video lying awake at 1 a.m., 10 years later, reliving 30 seconds you can't undo. Now, you know that memory was never a punishment. It was never proof that something is wrong with you. It was a survival system built for a world where your standing in the group meant everything still faithfully running its old code inside a brain that now has to survive Zoom calls and group texts instead of exile and starvation. The moment was never as big as your brain made it feel. It just needed to feel big enough that you'd never forget it.